You're listening to The Man Who Argued with the Wind, written and told by Purdy Brock Jenkins. This recording was made for listeners on YouTube Music as well as social media networks around the world. It's a brand new folktale from the Purdyville Library, so go on and get comfortable. Grab a snack or 7. After all, 7 snacks are better than 1 or 3. Put up your feet and relax. A good book is always better with a good snack. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Leonard once saw a man trying to scold a breeze. This was not a metaphor. It was just past mid-morning, and Leonard had gone walking with a thermos of warm cider, the way he liked to when the air smelled like leaf dust and bark peel. That's when he saw him, standing in the middle of a meadow, red-faced, coat unbuttoned, and flapping like a spooked bird. The man shook a crumpled hat at the sky and shouted things like, "You think you're clever? Blowing my letters all over the hillside? I was speaking, you rude little gust! I see you, I see you." Leonard crouched behind a stump, unsure if he was witnessing madness or poetry. The man's name, as Leonard would later learn, was Mr. Finster. He taught rhetoric to nobody in particular, lived in a house that leaned like it had given up, and once tried to patent a coat that clapped back at hecklers. But the thing people remembered most, besides the time he tried to petition against fog, was the day he picked a fight with the wind. Now Leonard was the sort of boy who collected questions. He kept them the way some people keep coins, quietly, in piles. He didn't interrupt Mr. Finster that day. Didn't ask what the wind had done to deserve it. Just kept watching as the man tried to reason with air. "Blustering fool," the man hissed. "You puffed out my lantern. That's 3 times this week." The wind didn't answer. It rarely does. But Leonard could feel it shifting, teasing. A little rustle of grass here, a leaf twirling just out of reach there, a tug at Finster's scarf like a playful cousin who doesn't know their own strength. The next morning, Mr. Finster was back at it. Only this time he brought charts, diagrams, arrows drawn in thick red marker, a portable chalkboard that kept falling over. Leonard, intrigued and half worried, finally approached. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Are you winning?" Mr. Finster's eyes lit up like a man who'd finally been given a witness. "I have evidence. Months of it. Correlations between my thoughts and sudden squalls. It's targeting me." Leonard nodded slowly, the way you do when someone is unraveling politely. "Why do you think that is?" Finster leaned in, lowering his voice to a dramatic whisper. "Because I speak too plainly. The wind fears clarity." Leonard couldn't help himself. "But if you stop speaking clearly, don't you let the wind win?" Mr. Finster blinked, then beamed. "Ah, a dialectical pivot! Good! Let's examine that!" And thus began the longest, strangest friendship Leonard ever had. Every day for the rest of the week, Leonard joined Finster in the field. He brought biscuits. Finster brought grievances. They debated the wind like it was a mischievous roommate. "It rearranged my porch chairs. It ruined my thesis on temporal phrasing. It tied my shoelaces together while I napped." Leonard mostly listened. Sometimes he offered counterpoints. Once he made the mistake of suggesting the wind wasn't out to get him. Finster stormed off and got hit in the face with a newspaper. He considered it proof. By Friday, Leonard noticed something strange. Mr. Finster looked lighter, not thinner, not younger, but untied. He laughed easier. He shook his fist with theatrical flair. He even smiled when the wind flipped his sandwich. "You know," Leonard said one evening as the wind rustled through the pine needles, "I think maybe the wind likes arguing with you." Finster narrowed his eyes. "Are you saying I'm being humored?" "No, I'm saying you give it purpose." The old man didn't speak for a long while. Then he chuckled. "Well, at least someone finally listens." By the second week, something odd began happening. Leonard noticed that the wind changed when Mr. Finster spoke. Only slightly. Only sometimes. But still, leaves would hush in the middle of one of his tirades. Gusts would pause when he raised a finger for emphasis. One afternoon, a cloud shaped almost exactly like a comma passed overhead, just as he said, "Now let me pause to collect my point." It was starting to feel like the wind was listening. Or at least, attending. Leonard didn't mention it. Not yet. He figured that if you say a magical thing out loud too soon, it goes and hides behind science. But one morning, Finster showed up late, without charts or complaints. He just stood there in his flappy coat, staring up at the sky. "What if I'm wrong?" he said. Leonard looked up from the biscuit he was unwrapping. "Wrong how?" "Wrong about the wind. What if it's not rude? What if it's sad?" Leonard blinked. "What makes you think that?" Mr. Finster shrugged. "It always arrives when no one else does. It fills silence, knocks things over to be noticed. Isn't that what sadness does?" Leonard sat with that. It was the first theory that made him want to offer the wind a cup of tea. That afternoon, they didn't argue with it. They listened. They let the wind tell its story, in rustles, whistles, flaps, and soft lurches. It was like trying to understand a dog's dreams by the way its paws twitched in sleep. But something was being said, even if it had no grammar. The next day, the wind didn't come. Not a breeze, not a whisper. The field stood still, the trees frozen like they were pretending to be statues at a party they hadn't been invited to. Mr. Finster seemed small. "I think we offended it." "By listening?" "By treating it gently. Maybe it liked being fought with." Leonard frowned. "That's backwards." Finster nodded. "Exactly." For 3 days, the wind stayed gone. Mr. Finster grew quieter, shrinking into his coat like a man who had nothing to push back against. Leonard started bringing extra biscuits, just in case silence made people hungrier. He asked his questions in his head, afraid the air wouldn't carry them anymore. "Why do we miss the things that knock us over? Why is being noticed such a loud thing? Does the wind go where it's loved, or only where it can cause trouble?" On the 4th day, it came back. Not with a bang, not with a tantrum, but with a sigh. A soft, curling, apologetic sigh that rattled the grass like a child asking if it's okay to come inside. Mr. Finster stood up, tied his scarf, straightened his spine, and did something he had never done before. He bowed. "Welcome back, you melodramatic draft." The wind shivered through his coat. Leonard could swear it chuckled. From then on, the debates resumed, but they changed. Now, they were less about blame, more about presence. Mr. Finster would declare something outrageous, wild, perfectly ridiculous, and the wind would answer by rearranging a leaf pile or tugging gently at his sleeve. Leonard would scribble notes. Sometimes he imagined it was a three-person conversation, even if one of them was invisible and never used vowels. One evening, just as the sun was tucking itself behind the trees, Leonard asked, "Do you still think it's targeting you?" Finster thought for a while, then smiled. "I think it's dancing with me." Leonard nodded. "Do you ever win?" "No, but I get to keep playing." Spring turned into summer. Summer turned into the season people don't have a name for, when the world feels lazy and tired but isn't quite ready for autumn. Leonard still walked to the field most days. Mr. Finster didn't always show up anymore. Sometimes he stayed home, writing letters to imaginary universities or sewing pockets onto coats that didn't need them. But Leonard came, and so did the wind. It didn't always argue. Sometimes it just was. It flitted through grass, made music with pine cones, brushed Leonard's cheek like a grandmother checking for fever. He learned to speak back in little ways, a whistle, a hum, a folded paper airplane tossed into nothing, carrying a question nobody else would answer. One day, Leonard stood in the middle of the field alone. No biscuits, no Finster, just him in the air. "I think you taught him something," he said. The wind ruffled his collar. "And me too." A gentle swirl lifted a piece of bark and spun it like a dancer who didn't need music. Leonard smiled. "You're not so bad once you stop trying to win." The wind answered by undoing his shoelace. He laughed. "Ha ha ha ha." The next time he saw Mr. Finster, the old man had a new notebook, one with a hand-stitched leather cover and a title embossed in gold foil. "Conversations with Unruly Elements." Leonard raised an eyebrow. "You publishing this one?" Finster shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe I'll just leave it on a windowsill and let the wind decide." Leonard nodded. "That's fair." They sat together in silence for a long time, and it was a good silence, the kind where nothing needs fixing, where the world breathes around you and doesn't ask anything back. Then, just as the sky started to pinken, "Leonard?" Finster said. "Yeah?" "I think I like arguing with you better than the wind." Leonard grinned. "That's because I answer back." They didn't need to say anything else. The wind picked up again, not in anger, not in triumph, just because it could. And in Leonard's notebook that night, beneath a doodle of a kite with no string, he wrote, "Sometimes the point isn't to win an argument. It's to have someone worth arguing with." That's all for now. If the story left something with you, keep it. Let it ride around in your thoughts for a while. These tales weren't meant to explain the world, just to notice it a little more kindly. And if you enjoyed being here, well, I'll be back with more stories, more questions dressed up like answers. Till then, take care of yourself and take care of the breezes in your life. They can blow you off course if you let them. If you don't let them, they feel really good on your face when it's hot outside. If this made you smile or made you feel something fuzzy and wonderful, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. Also give me a comment. What ideas do you have for the next story? I'll keep telling stories if you keep listening. This has been a Purdy Brock Jenkins. talking slow about things that move fast. I hope you enjoyed the story. It was a very good story. I especially liked the part where Mr. Finster was yelling at the wind and called it a blustering fool. That wasn't very nice. Calling someone a fool like that? He's lucky his mommy didn't wash his mouth out with soap. But then again, Mr. Finster may have liked the taste of soap and even asked for ketchup to put on it, or mustard. Soap tastes way better with mustard, just like dirty diapers. Not that I would know. But I think anything tastes better with mustard and ketchup. Right? Remember for next time that we need more snacks. A good book is always better with a good snack. See you next time. And have a sleepy Joe night. End of story.